now, the outgoing boss of Ofsted is calling on parents to keep up their end of the bargain, as the inspectorate's annual report finds pupil absences and behaviour has gotten worse since the pandemic.
And it follows a damning inquiry earlier this week that said Ofsted is seen as toxic and warns the system needs a big change. Well, Ofsted Chief Inspector Amanda Spielman joins us now. Very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Tell us first about what you're saying to parents, because you, of course, are the Chief Inspector of Schools, and anybody who has a child and has had a child in the state system over the pandemic knows how bad it got during lockdown, after lockdown. But you seem to be shifting the burden to parents and saying that the behaviour and absences are on them.
I don't think it's shifting the burden. So, first of all, yes, we inspect schools. We also inspect nurseries, colleges, as well as children's social care. So the view is wider than just schools. And the COVID hangover, if you like, has been felt across the board. The first thing I want to say, and we're taking a 7-year view in this report, as well as just the immediate year. This is my 7th and last year as Chief Inspector. But is to say that so much has improved over that time. What schools are doing, what they're teaching, how they're teaching it, that really has come on. There is so much to celebrate, so much to be optimistic about for the future. And that's a really important message to get across.
But the pandemic has had a devastating effect on our children.
The pandemic has had a big effect. And we can see that knocking through in attendance, which is below pre-COVID levels, and where a lot of children are attending school that much less than they did before. Partly illness, but partly for other reasons. And where this clarity, the importance of getting to school consistently, being there every day, come what may, unless you're too ill, that has broken down.
So you're saying that parents are being too lax with their children, not disciplined enough with their children?
It's a combination of things. I think it's the loss of the understanding that consistent school attendance is essential to making the progress. I think many people perhaps think it doesn't matter, the odd day here, a term time holiday there.
Well, don't you think that lockdown played into that? Children did not go to school during lockdown. And in one sense, that changed habits. Yeah. And in another, a lot of them have not... They've missed out so much on education, socialisation,
Well, that's what I was going to come on to, on behaviour. We can see... right through education at all stages, the effect of just delaying the socialisation. So at every level, behaviour is not as good. Schools, nurseries, everybody is having to spend a bit more time teaching, inculcating all the things about how we behave.
But that's not parents' fault, is it?
It's both ends. It needs reinforcing at both ends. What I'm trying to stress here is the incredible importance of parents and schools working together to get acceptance, reinforce, things as basic as uniforms, basic school expectations, as well as attendance. Parents and schools really have to work closely together.
Amanda, you're coming to the end of your 7-year stint as the leader, and we'll be looking back, I'm sure, as you pointed out initially, how many things have gone positively. But equally, there'll be questions about where Ofsted is as a body and the impact that they have on the world of teachers. There was an inquiry recently found that Ofsted is seen as toxic. You've acknowledged yourself there is a culture of fear around Ofsted. A recent survey said that staff have very little trust in the inspection system. 73% thought inspections were not fit for purpose. 64% of staff consider inspections do not deliver reliable judgment. 71% thought the inspections negatively impact their mental health and well-being.
I think you're quoting a survey that came from a sort of a hard-left teaching union that's been committed to abolishing Ofsted for over a decade.
But the reality, you have acknowledged...
I'm going to leave the survey aside, and I'm going to talk about the
culture of fear around Ofsted, because undoubtedly teachers are conscious of what happens when there's an Ofsted inspection and what that means to them. And
I think there's a crucial point to make here, which is that there is anxiety, and that is driven by the things that others may do in the light of an inspection findings. I don't think it's so much about the process itself. Inspection is a brief visit every 4 years or so. All of our inspectors are former leaders in schools themselves who've been at the receiving end, who understand what it's like. We've redesigned inspection itself to make it as constructive and as supportive as we can make it. But we can't take away the fact that consequences do hang off it. But nevertheless, more than 9 out of 10 schools tell us after their inspection that it will help them improve. We know that we're getting that, landing that constructive, supportive process on the ground.
One of the big criticisms is the one-word judgment that schools get post-Ofsted inspection and the trauma that can bring with it. I know there's a case currently, an inquest happening into the death of a head teacher who, was direct pressure as a result of the process of an Ofsted inspection.
Yes, her school, this is Ruth Perry, her school, Caversham Primary, was downgraded from outstanding to inadequate, and the inquest into her death is being held next week, but blamed by her family on that decision.
Obviously, I can't talk about a case where there's an inquest next week, but this principle that inspection is constructive, supportive, and above all fair. I have talked about that particular case on the record. I'm not going to go back into it.
But what about this one-word judgment then? Why are you insisting on sticking with the one-word judgment? Well,
firstly, our inspections are so much more than a one-word judgment. Look at our inspection reports and you'll see we talk about and judge quality of education, behaviour and attitudes, personal development. They're all the things that matter most to parents. We judge and we talk about individually. There is an overall effectiveness judgment. We know that parents value that simplicity and clarity. And we also know that many, many government decisions use those overall effectiveness judgments. So they're an integral part of the system. Unless government changes its policies, we can't take those away.
Okay.
And one more thing that's I think is really important to say is what we do is exactly the same as the inspectors of hospitals, the inspectors of police. There's nothing unusual about what we do. It is how all inspectorates work.
Yeah, the inquiry, though, used the word toxic. Do you think that Ofsted can be accused of being toxic?
Absolutely not. Our staff are all former leaders in schools. They properly understand the stress. They come to this to do their very best and to make Ofsted a force for improvement. It's simply not the case.
With an increase in suspensions, with a decline in behaviour, parents can see a decline in standards. As you leave Ofsted, do you think you've left schools in a better place?
Our job is to report on schools. Another thing that's not well understood is that our job is to report that others in the system have the responsibility and the funding for all the different support and improvement functions.
And do you think it's tough in post-pandemic?
Yeah.
Do you think that schools are in a worse position?
I've said I think schools are having a hard time because they are managing all these challenges around attendance and behaviour, the sort of extra mental health
budgets,
the extra mental health problems, the backlog of special educational needs. But I'll come back to my point. More than 9 out of 10 schools say that the inspection will help them improve. So I know that we are a constructive force.
Yeah, I just going to say, if you could give a one-word description of the Department of Education, what would it be?
That, I'm afraid, is not a game I'm going to play.
Well, it's perfectly reasonable to ask you to judge the Department of Education, especially as you're leaving your role. I
speak from the evidence we have. I'm happy to talk about the institutions we inspect. I'm not happy to talk about the Department for Education.
Interesting. All right, Amanda Spielman, thank you very much indeed.